Coming up live on LiveWire, we have a very informative show for you today. We're going to talk about services to servicemen who are out of the service and maybe needing some help. There are a number of service organizations, and we're going to be talking to Major General Daniel Helix and Major General Robert Hipwell, who are part of an organization called United States Volunteers. And they provide a number of services throughout the lives of past servicemen. And we are going to have a nice chat about exactly what those services are. So stay tuned for LiveWire right after this. We are back. So many servicemen end up homeless, and some of them have PTSD. Many of them have PTSD, I guess you would say. And I was always concerned about how does the government help that? And I know we have Veterans Administration, but it just is an overwhelming task, it seems. Our talk before the show tells me how much you two leaders are concerned with making sure that veterans, at least in our area of the world, are provided with an amazing support system. So why don't we just kind of tell me a little bit about how this all began? I mean, you saw a need, or how did it?
Well, first, thanks for having us, Ray. We both very much appreciate the opportunity to discuss what we do. The United States Volunteers is actually a national veteran service organization. We're in several states right now. It started in 1995 when a man named Colonel John Sullivan was at San Joaquin Valley National Cemetery at the interment of a friend of his with whom he'd served in Vietnam. And there was no honors. In fact, there was the casket, there was the pastor, there was the family, there was the National Cemetery folks, and there was no one in uniform to do the honors. And when they wanted to play taps, one of the National Cemetery people pushed the button under the podium, and out of the ethereal netherworld came that haunting song called Taps. And on the way back, he got the burn in the belly, and he said, "Not on my watch." And that's really our motto, an unofficial motto of not on our watch. We're going to make sure that what Congress mandated in 1959, that anybody who served honorably in the armed forces of the United States at their interment would have honors, or at least the right to them. And the reason they say they have the right to them is because they didn't even have the horses back then to do the mission. So he called up a couple of guys, veterans that he knew, and he said, he asked them two questions. First one was, do you have a uniform? And the second one was probably more important than the first was, do you fit in it? And so they put together what was then called the First Western Honors Unit, and it kind of morphed into the United States Volunteers because so many people around the country heard about us giving honors in uniform when there was no other military presence. And so we've now, at one point, we had 19 states serving 26 different national cemeteries. We've let a few units go because we're not a fraternal organization and they wanted to use it as such. We're a working veteran service organization, and that's really what our focus is working.
So tell me what would happen in the honors program? What is available?
What we do is we get a call from either Fort Lewis, Washington in California, or it's Calverton National Cemetery, for example, in New York, or the Guard in Texas, or one of our other states. And we've gotten calls from the Pentagon when they knew that there was no one going to be available because people were on deployment, or the fires for the National Guard were going on and no one was available. So we get the calls from, and we also from mortuary service, mortuary directors. will call up knowing that we're available, and we'll come pretty much on a moment's notice. Not quite that good yet, but give us 24 hours to 48 hours and we can have people out there to provide the bugler, the flag folders, the firing detail, the pallbearers, escorts, chaplains, the whole 9 yards. So those individuals who show up will know that the military paid attention to the service of their loved one.
And this goes, we have a national cemetery not far from here in Dixon.
Sacramento Valley National Cemetery, that's correct.
And it every day there's something happening.
There's probably at least 3 to 5 a day, if not more.
Mm-hmm. A lot of Vietnam vets and a lot of.
War II vets were dying at 1,500 a day for quite a while. That's dwindled because just by sheer numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Korean War vets, Vietnam veterans, Agent Orange has taken way too many, way too early.
Mm-hmm.
We have Cold War vets. We have all flavors. And usually the active component takes care of the active component. So if someone is killed in action, they will be taken care of by the active component.
I see. Okay. This is an amazing service, and it's the last service, and I've been to a couple where and witnessed this honors service and seen the reaction of the family of the soldier who was being buried, and it was especially the young ones were very moved by the process, and I think it connects us to each other and certainly to the unfortunate warring that we have to do.
Right.
So why don't we switch over and talk about the other kinds of service to living vets, people who are and I love this stand down program that you have. Tell me about that.
Okay, if I can jump in and start, and then General Dan can take over. California, with the 58 counties, most of the counties in California have a veteran stand-down event. Typically, it's once a year. Mm-hmm. So veterans know about these events. It was first started down in San Diego, our big Marine and Navy centric area, to provide services for them. And a stand-down is based on a military term where typically there's 2 units up front and 1 in reserve. And when one of those units up front gets beat up, banged up, needs to be pulled off the line, they'll pull 1 unit off the line and move up the reserves to take over for that. And when that unit is in stand-down mode, they take care of services that they weren't able to because they were in intense combat, right? So we develop it from the civilian's perspective for our veterans in the community, and we take all level of veterans, homeless, at risk, and just any veteran. So we provide services for them, such as, and the one we just had in Roseville, the Placer, their biggest request was for dental services, because a lot of the vets out on the street aren't on any kind of healthcare program. So we were able to get a big grant from our city of Roseville, and thank them very much. We were able to provide 16 tables, and we were able to have, and then California Care Force provided the expertise. They provided the doctors, the technicians, the expertise to help us cleaning, filling, and extractions if necessary.
So how do vets get to know that these are available, these things are available?
Well, a lot of the veteran community have their own network. For example, when they came to the Roseville stand down, we had 400 males and about 35 females come, and they network with each other. They say, hey, I just came from the Sacramento stand down. When's the next stand down going to be? So that's one way that they know where the stand downs are. And unfortunately, that's some of their only means that they get health care taken care of. As you mentioned, the VA is overtasked and under-resourced, so they can't necessarily get to the VA. They don't have transportation in some cases. Yeah. So we provide some services like dental, health, general health checkups, eyeglasses if they need it, hearing if they need it. We provide 3 meals a day. We get the community involved from a grassroots level. For example, Thunder Valley Casino provided the meal for all our 400 veterans and the service that we provide for them from their local community. So we have a lot of community involvement.
Yeah. The other day ago, I was coming off the freeway over here in downtown Sacramento, and there's a guy standing there on the corner, and it said, "Vet hungry."
So I worked in the homeless industry for quite a while as a pastor as well. I was at the Bay Area Rescue Mission for several years, and some of those guys are the real deal. Some of them really are veterans, and they've lost their way for one reason or another. It could be PTSD. It could be just life happens. Some of them that have the signs up aren't usually, or not, I won't say usually, often are really not vets, but it's a way that they'll use, and I encountered that even in my work at the mission. But the reason we know the VA actually is doing a good job, as many people have been disparaging the VA and for the medical side. When it comes to the PTSD side, they actually do a very good job. And we have a thing called vet centers, and it's for combat vets who would be the ones to experience the PTSD, and they can go and get counseling, they can get services. There's a whole panoply of services that are offered through the vet centers. And that network that General Bob was talking about is very prevalent in the vet centers, because that's where they talk. And vet centers are often usually involved very much in the stand downs. Mm-hmm. And so they hear of that through the vet centers. They hear of that on the street. They hear of that at the VA when they're being taken care of. And we put signs up all over the community to let those veterans know there's a stand down coming up. And again, like General Bob was saying, they network so much even at the stand down. When's the next one going to be? Who's going to be providing it? And they know all the players. They're pretty smart guys.
Yeah, the stand downs, I was looking in some of the notes about this. They provide a huge variety of services right there, right then, about 10 or 11 kinds of services. Oh, it's on the back of that card.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
I knew when I put that card away. Dental and medical and eye services. That's fantastic. A hearing van. That's very important. A lot of guys, what? Yeah. Meals, and you can even stay overnight there and then get a haircut. Mm-hmm. These are great. And obviously, you two guys don't do all this work, and it's a number of organizations
right?
that are brought together, the VA, of course. And even if they have a dog or a cat, they can bring it down.
Yes.
Each stand down has its own committee, and each stand down has their own private nonprofit. They're all 501c3s, so they can accept donations, etc.
Yes.
And they have a committee that works pretty tirelessly for about a year before the actual event to put this thing on. General Hipwell's stand down goes. You go every year?
Yes.
I'm the chairman of the North Bay stand down in Dixon.
Oh, I see.
And I'm on the board for the San Mateo stand down and also the stand down on the Delta in Antioch. Now, the Antioch one goes every other year, but most of the others go every year. But we also sleep them there for 3 or 4 nights. We provide those services, and it takes a tremendous amount of coordination. And the committee will be 20, 30, sometimes 40 people that are doing all of these different coordinating activities.
I see.
So it's an amazing thing how people from the community come together to help out the vets. Many of them are vets or are connected to vets, married to or whatever. Mm-hmm. But we have people who just know that they want to serve those who served us for the sake of freedom.
So this next stand down is on August the 20th at
24th.
Starts at 7 a.m. And where is it?
Sit Cal
1600 Exposition Boulevard in Sacramento.
Okay, and there are a number of ways you can learn about it. Look at all those websites.
Right.
SacramentoStandDown.org, and then there's the Facebook.com, the Sacramento Stand Down, and I guess that's a connecting device for people who are on Facebook.
In this area, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, and then there's the Placer Veteran Stand Down.
Correct.
And
the one in Placer, we serve all veterans. The one in Sacramento is focused on homeless veterans and veterans at risk. So that's a little different focus, where you basically have to be either on the street or be couch surfing to get into the Sacramento one, and they consider that one a closed one. Once you get on campus, you can leave, but you can't come back, right?
Yeah.
So they do provide the similar services. Like you said, they can bring their pets, and they keep the vets with pets in a separate housing area in case there's a little bit of
little trouble
with the dogs, right?
Good. Well, and so there's standing committees across the United States that handle each one of these areas.
What you find is the leadership is pretty solid. The people who are putting the event on, the executive director, for example, the board of directors on each stand down are people who have dedicated and committed to doing these stand downs. And then you get people who come and go, whether they're the coordinator for dental or the coordinator for even the military, when we have military folks show up, the coordinator for food. The coordinators are pretty set, but that's a little bit more fluid. The people who are driving the events are, like I said, they're very committed, and we look forward to this every year to do this. It's part of the passion.
Sure, we would want it to be a quality service for our men and women.
Right.
So we're going to have to take a short pause for the cause here, and then we're going to come back. But I also want to talk about how you can actually get transportation available, because a lot of these guys, that guy on the street corner, let's say he was for real.
That's another part of the committee, as a matter of fact,
I
is
see.
transportation, you bet.
Yeah. So I'm sure it's an interesting thing, and he probably doesn't have because in my generation, guys probably don't all have computers attached to them.
Right?
That's probably true.
So they can't go to the website. But there is a telephone number here. We know how to use telephones.
Yes.
Sure.
Now that's for Placer.
Yeah, this one's for Placer, but there's also probably a telephone number for
Sacramento.
the Sacramento one.
I think if they go to the website, they'll probably find the phone number there and how to.
Well, we'll find out, and we'll be back after we take this short pause for the cause. There's some important messages, so stay tuned for LiveWire right after this, and we're going to talk to Major General Helix and Major General Hipwell about veterans.
You bet.
Great.
Okay, here we go.
Every year, tens of thousands of young people experience homelessness. If you or someone you know needs help, 1-800-RUNAWAY can provide support and connect you to the right resources. Together, we can end youth homelessness.
So there you are. It's flu season, and you're over 65 like me. You might be forgetting something serious. Your annual flu shot. The flu can be life-threatening, especially if you have chronic conditions like diabetes and heart disease, which can worsen with the flu. The immune system weakens with age. Ask about a flu vaccine option made specifically for us. Visit ncoa.org/flu to learn more and talk to your doctor about vaccine options for people 65 and older.
There's a quiet battle happening on our streets. Pedestrians are acting indestructible. And drivers act like they own the road. They're both wrong. Be aware, be alert. Pedestrians don't have armor. A message from the California Office of Traffic Safety.
I'm talking about services to veterans with Major General Daniel Helix and Major General Robert Hipwell. They both are past servicemen, and they continue their services to veterans through an organization called the United States Volunteers, which is about as old as the Civil War. Is that right?
Actually, our etymology comes from Teddy Roosevelt, and when you see his picture and it has the USV on the dog collar, that's where we actually picked up that charge, if you will, to continue the United States Volunteers.
With a nice light brigade serving good people.
It was British.
Oh, that was British. Oh, sorry. We don't use the word brigade, do we?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Sure do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Military language escapes me sometimes. Thanks for the understanding what stand down means in terms of military strategy. It's fascinating. So before we went to the break, we said that we'd come back and talk more about this stand down program. But we have some photographs of the placer stand down, I think, from last year. So
This year in May. It was in May of this year.
Yeah. So if you, sir, would
Sure.
give us a kind of a, you can narrate it. There we go.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Ray. Well, this looks like a stand-down event where we have veterans coming in for the night, getting ready to settle in. They come through a registration table. We validate, for example, they are veterans. We do have some imposters out there, as you would imagine.
Oh.
So a lot of them have DD-214s, which are their exit approval form from the military, or they have a VA card or something that proves that they're a veteran. So they come through the gates, and then we ask them, do you have any pets, for example? Or you're going to bring? We can see if they have pets, but if they have pets, we put them in a different area. We bring them in, and first thing we have showers available for them, areas for cleaning up if they need it. We typically give them an area. If they're going to spend the night, that's fine. They can spend the night with us, or they can go home. The one for plaster, they can go home overnight. But once you leave it that day, you can't come back to the next day. Right? So this is another picture of Fairfield, does it say?
That's Jeff Jewell right there. That's actually our stand down for the North Bay stand down.
Oh.
And he's the executive director and one of the founders. The North Bay stand down's been going since 2002. I chair that event now, but Jeff really and his wife, to be honest with you, Lynn Jewell, appropriately named Jewell because they are just wonderful people who serve veterans. Jeff is the lead for the Concord Vet Center.
I see. Look at that, dental x-rays. We should talk about that and maybe after we do the series.
Okay.
Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, these look like people in dental chairs at the Roseville stand down this year from May.
Right.
So as we talked about, and we also have vision, so they can come in, get a vision check, and then they have glasses that are pre-designed and made up already. So once we find out what their prescription is, then we can provide a couple pair of glasses for them right on the scene. So
Right
they
on
can
the
walk
scene.
away with
Sounds
glasses.
good. Thank you for seeing me as a veteran and a homeless man. My God.
So here we have a Vietnam veteran, obviously, who is happy to be there and get these. We call it a love fest, where we give some love back to our veterans who have loved our country enough that they've stepped up to the plate and gone to do their patriotic duty for us. So we want to help them as much as we can. We call it a hand up, not a hand out.
Yeah.
We have a lot of veterans that have come to a stand down in a depressed or not good position, and then they volunteer the next year and volunteer the next year as they work their way back into society and get a job and get themselves back on the road to recovery.
So how do you assess that in a one day?
It's a 3 or 4 day event.
I see.
And we have MSWs from the VA that are there to help us and also provide counseling. One of the things wasn't mentioned on there, we provide chaplain services at these events where we bring in copious amounts of chaplains. There's one the East Bay stand down I did one year, we brought through 90 chaplains in 4 days. And we have several sleep overnight, like General Bob was talking about, because they are nocturnal beings and they're up late and all through the night. So this is one of the ways that we assess is the team gets together and we can tell who's going to need some extra help and who's not going to need extra help.
So and there's somebody for each one of the services, there must be a kind of a lead central that says, oh, we really need more help over here.
No, each service provided on campus during the stand down is kind of standalone. They know what they're doing, and we don't get in their way.
And they've been to many stand downs before. They bring people to represent themselves. Like the VA has VA representatives. We have employment representatives. We have legal representation. If people have a legal problem, we can go into private consultation with a lawyer. Wow. And in some cases, we had the opportunity to bring in a retired judge who could adjudicate some of their minor, not the major ones, but they could give them community service.
Misdemeanors, no felonies.
Right, for potential driving tickets or parking tickets or something. They can do community service and get that wiped off their records.
That's very good.
So in North Bay stand down, we bring in 4 different judges from 4 different counties, and they adjudicate those, everything from child support issues. We had one guy that was 68 years old. and his kids were in their 40s, and he was still paying on child support and couldn't get a driver's license because of it. So the judge basically wiped that off with some community service hours. DMV is right there to give them a brand new license so they can go back to work and they can get mobile again. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
The medical has appointments there with follow-on appointments, dental with follow-on appointments. We have community services there for jobs, for housing, if they need a program because they have addiction issues. We have those programs available as well.
Wow, I see. So now that there is it's a much bigger thing than just a 4-day thing. It can
We're
carry
taking
out.
care of the whole, it's a very holistic program. We take care of the whole vet.
That's great. That's absolutely great. So how are we doing in terms of the number of vets and the?
Well, I guess that goes by area, Ray. In the greater Sacramento area, there's about 6,000 vets that live in the greater Sacramento area. And in Placerville, the number's less because it's a smaller community, but it varies. We're seeing the numbers pretty steady. I've done 6 stand-downs at Placer, and they seem to be pretty steady. But General Dan has different opinion of people that have come through his
just a
stand-downs.
different experience,
Different
right?
experience,
we,
right?
I know East Bay Stand Down was serving over 500, around 500 vets, and I think the last one was probably 325.
I see.
We were serving in North Bay Stand Down. We were serving probably upwards of 400. Last year was a little unusual. We only had 75 vets, but that's because the fires that happened in Napa took all of our support away, and we actually had to reschedule it. But we'll have about 150 this year. So in the areas where the stand-downs have been going on for 10, 12 years or more, you're seeing a real impact. I think that in Placer, I still think they've been going for 6 years, but I think that you see a lot of repeats as well. Guys that have been there, they didn't get everything they wanted the first stand-down, but now they know what they're going to encounter, and so they can go and they know what service they're going for. At first, I've got to say, I don't know if General, you had this experience, but I got upset when I first saw guys come in over and over and over again until I realized that these guys were coming and they're now pinpointing what the service they're going to get that they didn't get the last time. And so what I did is I found one guy who had been there 3 times and one guy that had been there 1 time, the first time, and I hooked him up and I told the guy that had been there 3 times, I said, look, your responsibility as a veteran with a fellow veteran, because this guy looks like he's got that 1,000-yard stare because he doesn't know what he's doing here. Now you tell him where he's going and you guide him around, and so that camaraderie continued at the stand-down.
You two guys are wonderful. You're going to have to come back again and when you do this again, and we'll talk one more time. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming. We've got to go. We went right through the whole time.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you, General Dan. Thank you,
bless you.
General
Thank
Bob.
you.
Thank you guys for the service that you do for our country.
It's an honor.
It's an honor and privilege to do that.
Okay, that's it. We'll see you.